Hey, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, I should say, for myself. It's 12:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on this Friday, June the 18th, 2021. It is 19 degrees Celsius here, which in Fahrenheit is, what is it here in Toronto? It is, no, it's 21 degrees Celsius, which is 66 degrees Fahrenheit. I have this little new thing that popped up here. 66 degrees Fahrenheit for my American friends and those who use Fahrenheit. Welcome to McRae Live. This is episode 180. And I wanted to talk about cinematic language today, the importance of cinematic language. And because it is something that I learned in film school many moons ago, but it is also something that, you know, I've always tried to, in the little shorts that I've done over the years, and of course in film school, they really, you know, you have to really kind of pay attention to that kind of thing. But it definitely was something that myself and Bruce really instilled in It's Me, Billy. And most filmmakers do this. What do I mean by cinematic language? Well, first of all, I don't mean cinematic lingo. Like, well, I kind of do, but I don't. I'm not talking about technical terms, okay? Although you do need to know the technical terms of, you know, what a medium shot is, what a close-up shot is, what a long shot is, what, you know, a tracking shot is, what a ped up, ped down, pan right, pan left. I mean, you know, you need to know what this all means, because obviously those are the tools. Those are the tools that you use to express the cinematic language, I will say. Cinematic language is essentially, there's many different ways that cinematic language is used. And it can be used through framing, through camera angles. I said the other day on my show, and I've said this a lot, is that especially for people who want to get into film, want to make movies, it's so important that we understand that you are telling a story through the lens, right? So it really matters where you place that camera. You know, where you place your camera, the lenses you decide to use, you know, whether it's a medium shot or a close-up or an extreme close-up or a long shot or a low angle shot, high angle shot, whatever it is, fundamentally changes the language you are expressing to your audience. And by doing that, you are changing the feeling and the message of what you are trying to express. You never just take a camera, put it somewhere, point and shoot, okay? Unless there's a specific reason in doing that. Do you know what I'm saying? So, and I've learned this over the years. I mean, I've always tried to remember that whenever I am doing something. And of course, when you're doing something like It's Me, Billy, it's a $60,000 movie. Obviously, that is ultra low budget. That's pretty much no budget when it comes to Hollywood. But certainly a $60,000 short film is still a $60,000 short film. And, you know, I learned the stuff that I learned in film school many moons ago. I was finally able to tap back into and remember and really put forward into this picture. And, you know, it matters where I just want, and again, I'm not somebody that's ever made a Hollywood film. I'm not somebody that's ever been tapped to, you know, helm a $2 million project, but these are the things I've learned over the years. And these are the things that I think are very important to up and coming filmmakers, or should be important to up and coming filmmakers, aspiring filmmakers, and what have you, is the importance of cinematic language. It really matters. You don't just pick up your camera and stick it down and then point and shoot. You know, you are telling a story through the lens. And one of the ways you can do that, well, actually, let's go over to the other screen because I want to read you something here, and then we'll jump into some examples of what I'm talking about and why it's so important. So let's go to the other screen. Here we are. How to recognize cinematic language. Is it looking? Yeah, okay. A good tip when trying to recognize cinematic language is to tune into how you feel when you are watching a particular scene. This is really important because if the language is expressed correctly, if the language is expressed appropriately, then you should be feeling that language, right? Now, there's many different ways you can express cinematic language, and one of which obviously is through how you make the audience feel. Typically, screenwriters intend to present meaning to the audience subtly and subconsciously. How many times have you heard me talk about that? How many times have you heard me talk about tapping into the subconscious of the viewer? How many times have you heard me say things like, you may not even know it consciously, right? You hear me say that all the time. Okay, that's because I understand the importance of affecting a viewer subconsciously. So that means that you can feel something, but you don't necessarily know how to explain why you're feeling a certain way. You know what I mean? It's not just the mood. It's not just the light switch. It's not just, there's a lot more going on in the process of filmmaking that makes you feel a certain way. If a man in the shadows, here's an example. If a man in the shadows is approaching a character from behind, sorry, let me try that again. If a man in the shadows approaching a character from behind makes you feel suspicious, that is more than likely what the film is trying to communicate. Now, that may be the obvious, right? But that's a very rudimentary, basic example of what we're talking about when we talk about cinematic language. This is a Martin Scorsese quote. You're seeing it all in your mind's eye. You're inferring it. And this is the fourth aspect of cinema that's so special, that inference. The image in the mind's eye. For me, where are we here? For me, it's where the obsession began. It's what keeps me going. It never fails to excite me because you take one shot, you put it together with another shot, and you experience a third image in your mind's eye that doesn't really exist in those two other images. My chair is extra squeaky lately. And that has been called appropriately, I believe, film language. So this is some of the examples that you can take when it comes to, where are we here? There we go. I'm on two different screens here. When it comes to examples of cinematic language, okay? So cinematic language in film can come in many different forms. Take the following examples. Camera framing. This is really important. Camera framing. A camera angle and framing can tell us how to feel about a character. For example, if the camera is looking at a character from a low angle, it shows the character is important or powerful. If the camera is looking from a high angle, it can show the character is small and weak or vulnerable or alone, right? Lighting and color. A dark and dull setting can tell us that we should feel tense or scared, or a light and colorful setting can tell us to feel happy and warm. Performance. An actor's performance is the key to understanding their emotions throughout a film. They can communicate this in a number of ways through facial expressions, body language, pace, and tone. The writer might typically convey this intention through stage direction or a parenthetical. Okay, so here's an example of great use of cinematic language in the original Psycho from 1960, when Janet Leigh's character is killed in the shower, right, in the bathtub, and she falls over and she slumps over. The camera pans from right to left as we see the blood or the chocolate syrup. We see the blood, moving along with the water down the drain, right? Down the drain. The water is going down the drain. The blood is going down the drain. This is classic. This is like cinematic language 101. So you probably, if you're very film savvy or if you're a cinephile, you probably already know what I'm about to say. One of the biggest uses of cinematic language is through metaphors, symbolism, and foreshadowing. And of course, the symbolism of, water going down the drain and her blood, which is part of her. It's not just the water going down the drain. It's her blood. It's her DNA, which is also going down the drain. And you see the drain going, right? Is conveying the life being sucked out of this character. The life is being flushed down the drain. The life is gone, right? Now, you don't necessarily think of this consciously when you're watching it. When you are, if you're a cinephile or you are very astute, you might see that. There are very film savvy people that I know that will pick up on things immediately. The average moviegoer may not pick it up, but it's going to make you feel a certain way. And again, cinematic language, if done right, isn't necessarily supposed to make you consciously aware and objectively aware of the language that's being spoken, but it's supposed to make you feel a certain way. So, really important. Here's another great example in Schindler's List from Steven Spielberg. When writing a screenplay, cinematic language is a principle you should always have at the forefront of your mind. Camera directions and editing techniques are not explicitly your responsibility to write about. Now, we're talking about, of course, from a writing perspective, right? Okay. But cinematic language should be at the core of your screenplay. A good example of the use of cinematic language comes in Schindler's List. The iconic use of color in this famous scene above portrays many things, right? we all remember this scene, right? It's a black and white film, and all of a sudden, whoa, this girl like in the red coat. Oh my God, it's iconic. It's an iconic moment in the movie. The film is entirely in black and white, apart from this scene. The red coat, therefore, stands out. The young girl in the red coat is framed to be small and innocent against the heavy backdrop filled with masses of people. It's used as a way to symbolize hope, innocence, and vitality amidst so much death and destruction. Right? Hope. And when it's brought from your subconscious to your conscious mind, you sit there and you think, holy shit. Yeah, like I can see that, and this isn't the only use of that kind of stuff, right? We have seen movies before where, there's been a lot of carnage, destruction, death, right? Apocalyptic, maybe, things are, a lot of the color is washed out or muted color tones, not very vibrant. And then maybe at the end of the movie, there's like a bird that shows up, and the bird is like this beautiful, bright robin or blue jay or I don't know, cardinal, a big red cardinal or something, right? And it's very red, it's very vibrant. And it's amongst the carnage or something, right? It's like, oh, this bird survived, right? Or this insect survived. Life will go on. There is hope. And they make that bright and vibrant, to relay that message. That's cinematic language, right? You are always telling a story. Cinematic language is you have a certain set of tools at your disposal as a writer, as a filmmaker, as a director, and you use those tools to tell your story, right? Because you want your audience to feel a certain way, emotionally, psychologically, whatever the case is. You want your audience to feel a certain way. And how you get your audience to feel that way is through the use of cinematic language and how you tell your story. And it's incredibly important. Then of course, that's a screenwriter there talking about this. Applying cinematic language to your screenplay. Considering this example, it might be useful to ask yourself, is your screenplay portraying cinematic language, right? That's also important as well. Now, that doesn't mean that you go through and you arbitrarily start throwing in symbolism and foreshadowing and all that kind of stuff. But what's really important is you have the ability as a screenwriter and as a filmmaker, as a director as well, to convey symbolism And it makes your film, when you can tap into the subconscious and the psyche of your audience, it makes your film smarter, more mature, more effective. Now, that doesn't mean every film has to, if you're making some dumb comedy called, you know, Jim and John's Big Boat Ride, I mean, it's just some stupid teen comedy. Well, no, I mean, the use of cinematic language, you know, is probably not going to be as apparent as in something like, you know, Schindler's List or something more of a psychological thriller or drama or, you know, horror movie or whatever the case is. But especially in a horror movie, I mean, we're essentially a horror channel here, guys. And horror movies use cinematic language all the time through light and shadow, through symbolism, foreshadowing. I mean, you know, Hereditary is full of that stuff. There's some stuff in Hereditary that people don't even pick up on. They don't even realize it's not just picking up a fucking camera and point and shooting. You know what I mean? You are telling a story, you know, and you have such, you know, Spielberg is brilliant at this. Kubrick was brilliant at this. You know what I mean? Scorsese, Nolan, you know, some of your favorite directors, Fincher, David Fincher is incredible at this. You know, for example, it's like, say we want to convey our character is having a very difficult time at his job, let's say. I'm making this up, okay, but I'm giving you an example. Our character is having a very difficult time at his job. So what he does is, what the writer does to convey this is he has, maybe at his place of work, he's sitting in an office that doesn't have much in it, right? So there's not a lot of stuff in the office, okay? There's a desk, there's a filing cabinet, and a window, right? Well, what is that going to make the audience feel, right? How is the audience going to feel that? Or maybe there is no window, right? Maybe this character has an office where there is no window, right? Now, we already know that the character can't stand their fucking job, right? They can't stand their job, okay? We know this. And all of a sudden, we cut to a scene where they're at work, okay? And they have an office, and there's no window in the office, and the office is small, and there's not a lot of stuff in it. What is that conveying to the viewer without the viewer necessarily consciously thinking of this, right? It's conveying claustrophobia. It's conveying sort of a very sort of dead, kind of uninteresting, right? He hates his job. Well, the office is nothing really to look at, right? You know what I mean? So again, that's communicating that this is sort of representing through symbolism a claustrophobic nature for the character. He doesn't like his job. He feels this, you know, there's no windows, right? There's no happy fucking thing outside. You know, you can't see sunshine coming in. The office is pretty bare, right? It's all conveying a feeling for the character as well. This is representing the character in a way, right? This is how the character feels. And we want our audience to feel this way as well, right? That's cinematic language. And so it's important that when you are writing a script and you're writing certain scenes, that you do pay attention to that. And if you are somebody who is writing and directing, that you remember that as when you are the writer director. You remember that as well when you get to set. You know, think about where you're placing the camera, how you're telling the story through the lens. It all starts with the writing, though. It all starts with the writing. So really, really important stuff. Really important stuff. You know, and there's many different tools. A filmmaker has there is a tool belt that a filmmaker has, and you can use those tools correctly, or you can not use those tools at all. You know what I mean? And for me, one of the biggest mistakes up and coming filmmakers, aspiring filmmakers make is they don't pay attention to sound. That's number one. They want to know what to shoot on, the best cameras, the best lighting, the best this, the best that. I have to do my Trump. Whenever I say the best, I think of Trump. It's terrible. It's terrible. But they pay no attention to sound, right? And number two is they don't really understand how to tell a story through the lens, you know, and how to affect when you're writing. And you're feeling all those things when you're writing, oh, this is cool, this is great, this is awesome. You want your audience to feel those things too. You want the messages and the feeling about the characters and the plot and all the tiny idiosyncrasies and the details and the nuances. You want to convey those on screen. That's not easy. It's easier to do on page, but now you have to use those tools as a filmmaker to translate those feelings and meaning onto the screen. And that can be difficult. That can be tough. That's why sometimes, well, anyway, it's a whole other thing, but yeah, it can be tough. It can be tough. All right, where are we here? So, although it is the director's job to bring this scene to life, it is your job as the screenwriter, we're talking about, the writing perspective, which is really important, to characterize the scene as best you can. Language such as his intention is drawn to a small, let's try that again. Language such as his intention is drawn to a small distant figure, all in red, all the rear of, where are we here? All the rear of the many columns. Sorry, this is bigger on the other screen. Would give the cinematographer an idea of how to frame the girl in the shot, right? This communicates to the audience that that she is small and vulnerable. Small and vulnerable, right? I think you understand what I'm talking about, right? I think you understand what I'm talking about. So let's talk about some of the cinematic language that Bruce and I were conveying in It's Me, Billy. Now, one of the things that we wanted to do with It's Me, Billy, it's a horror movie, right? And depending on what you want to do and what sort of feelings and messages you want to communicate to your audience is very dependent on, of course, maybe even what genre you're doing, right? Well, we're doing a horror movie, okay? I mean, that's what It's Me, Billy is at its core, although it is more of a psychological drama / horror as well, because the first half of the film is very much a drama, right? We're getting to know the characters, the past, but that still doesn't mean there isn't language we are communicating to our audience. And one of the things that we discussed with our DP, Greg Bennett, was that there are 4 essential colors to It's Me, Billy. And these 4 colors to It's Me, Billy are very important. The first color is in the first scene, right? When we first cut in from the black, right? From the disclaimer, right? We cut in and we see this shot, okay? And this was to convey, we are beginning, right? We are beginning our movie. This is conveying it's wintertime. There's a coldness to it. There's an isolation to it, right? We are above. So although you are not seeing the expanse of what's around, right? Now you could, I mean, who knows? Maybe there's like a skyscraper over to the left over here. Maybe there's, a skyscraper over to the right. Maybe they're in the middle of the city and it just looks like they're in the middle of nowhere, right? Obviously, that's not the case because we communicate that later with the drone shots. But this is the first thing you see. We are communicating isolation, right? We are communicating cold, right? We are communicating loneliness. You know what I'm saying? Which is not just a representation of the car, but it's a representation of Sam as well, right? Now, again, you are not supposed to necessarily think of these things consciously when you are watching this movie or any movie. If you do and you pick up on it, that's great. But it's all about a feeling that is being conveyed to the viewer through cinematic language. So this is the first sort of feeling and color that we have in our film, right? And that feeling and color continues to go on over into a scene like this, right? Again, very sort of muted colors, not vibrant, right? Because it's not a happy time. Sam is mourning the loss of her mother. She's mourning the loss of her grandmother, right? So she thinks, she's sad, she's upset, she's worried about herself. I got to start taking care of myself. Emma, I don't want to end up like her, right? So the mood of the movie is, somewhat somber, right? And, we didn't want these colors to pop, because it's winter, it's cold, it's gray, it's a horror movie, right? We're instilling sort of a moody atmosphere, right? And of course, it also coincides with the emotions that our main lead is also feeling. That's cinematic language. The third one here is this. Now we go inside, right? Now we go inside. And you'll notice that the color, temperature, and the feeling has changed a bit, right? It is warmer, Okay, there's more of a warmer vibe to this scene, and the girls start off joking around, right? It's a happier vibe. Not happy, not all out sort of, woohoo, yeah, everything's fine and, great. But we go from outside, which is colder and isolated, desolate, right? And then we come inside, which is warmer, more inviting, more cozy. You know what I mean? And this is what you're seeing, right? And the girls start off in a good mood, right? They're talking about Chris and Mark, and they're laughing. And so there's that feeling, again, through the use of cinematic language in terms of lighting. We are also in a 3-shot of the girls at the table, right? Medium close-ups of the 3 girls at the table. And that's where we stay until we don't, and we'll get to that in a second, right? Now, have I gone on here? Let's, yeah, okay. So, and then again here, when we get to the living room, same thing, right? A little bit of a false sense of security. They're inside, right? They are, things are warmly lit, more of a tungsten kind of warmer feel, right? The girls are on the couch. They're drinking their hot cocoa. They're watching a little horror movie. Things are kind of cozy. They're snuggled up together. Again, we are conveying a feeling to the audience through the use of lighting, which isn't the only use of cinematic language. Like I said, there's many uses: framing, camera angles, character emotion, setting. It's the language of cinema. Now, when we go to the next one here, so this is after the phone call, right? And this is after Justine's death. Spoiler alert, but if you haven't seen it now, it's been out for 3 weeks. You're in no rush. Things start to get cooler, right? Things start to get cooler. You know what I mean? Because it's nighttime, the lights are off, it's colder, and this is more of that ominous sort of vibe, right? This was the tone and the feeling of when Justine met her maker, so to speak. And this is sort of that feeling of, the third color palette, essentially, okay, for lack of a better word, right? Isolation, cold, those nice sort of, it's not blue lighting. It's more of that. It's more of what moonlight really is, right? But again, it's that cold, dark, ominous vibe. That's number 3. That's number 3. And you see that. Oh, where are we here? Where are we? That's right. Yeah. Okay. So I guess I take that off. And then we do this one. Again, same thing, right? When she's going through the house and she's on the phone, and then of course she, walks up the stairs and all that kind of stuff. That again is, it's cold, it's dark, it's eerie, right? Things are closing in around her, right? You know what I'm saying? Now this here is your transition. This is your transition. Look at the lighting behind Victoria and look at the lighting in front of Victoria. Now, are you thinking of this consciously when you're watching this movie? No. And if it's done right and done well, you probably shouldn't, unless you're just one of those people that is so astute that you look for this kind of stuff. But again, there is a transition happening, right? She is going from the colder, dark, sort of creepy, eerie, ominous, right? And now she's coming into the evil, caution, warning, go back. What the fuck are you doing? Red, stop. She's coming into that, right? Again, cinematic language. These are things that are not by accident. These are things that filmmakers, and it's not just in this film, obviously, but these are things that myself and Bruce paid very much attention to when we were crafting the film, It's Me, Billy, and writing the film, crafting the shots. We have a very good understanding of what cinematic language is and how to convey that on screen to instill a feeling to the audience or a message to the audience, whether subconsciously or consciously. So again, you see that here, right? There's that transition. She is leaving one sort of realm and entering another. And then, of course, when we get to the stairs, oh, not that one. This one, where'd it go? Did I not get it? Oh, maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't put it in. I guess I didn't put it in. But anyways, when we get to the stairs, which is like which is like my thumbnail, it gets really, really red, right? And then of course, when she's actually in the attic, there's this nice red. Gone is the, the coolness. Gone is the, the blues and the whites, and now we're quite saturated and rich with evil and red, because now she is in the attic and she is coming face to face with her grandmother's chilling Christmas past, right? Billy. You know what I mean? And all that is intentional. Now, again, when you watch the movie, you're not necessarily thinking of these things consciously, but by doing this, whether you realize it or not, we are making you feel a certain way. We are making you feel a certain way when you watch these scenes play out. That's cinematic language. Of course, I'm talking about it being used through lighting. There's other ways you can convey cinematic language as well, not just through the use of lighting and light and shadow, but this is one big way, obviously, that it is used in horror movies, or should be used in horror movies, right? Very important. Very important. Another way that you can convey cinematic language is through the use of camera movement and how you're telling the story through the lens. So for example, let's go to this clip here. You remember when I was talking about the dining room scene, right? The dining room scene, which I think is, one second here. Let's do this and this and this and go back to, I think it's this one. Yeah. You remember that things were nice and warm and cozy and all that kind of stuff. And we were in a 3-shot, medium close-up of the 3 ladies. And we stayed there until we got to, until Sam started talking about the thing that's been bothering her lately, which is her grandmother started to have doubts, right? Well, what happened during that? Did we stay in the 3-shot? We could have. We could have stayed in the 3-shot. But we wanted to have the audience feel something a bit different, right? So what we decided to do is we actually cut to this here. Sam begins to actually, the camera, which is attached to a jib, is actually tracking across the table. It's as if we are another member at the table, and because of the movement of the camera, and it's slowly moving towards Sam, it is we as the audience slowly leaning in. We're leaning in towards Sam to listen to what she's saying. This is really important now. This isn't just, we could have done this in the 3-shot. We could have done this as a medium close-up, but we didn't. The camera's tracking in towards Sam as if we are leaning in, listening very carefully. This is telling the audience to pay attention to what she's saying. Shh, quiet, turn off your phones, don't fart, stop chewing the popcorn, listen to what she's saying, right? That's cinematic language. And then when she stops, of course, the camera stops and goes back to the 3-shot. Now, that might not seem like a big deal, but the difference that creative choice made in terms of going across the table as opposed to just being static on her and her reciting the same thing, but just static in the medium shot, is night and day. There is a different feeling you are conveying to the audience, a different level of importance that you are conveying to the audience. And that's what it's all about, telling the story through the lens. I want my audience to feel this. I want them to think this or feel this consciously or subconsciously, whatever the case is. Another example would be when we are in the living room. And not when the 3 girls are there, but when we first arrive to the house, right? Sam walks into the living room. She looks at the ornament on the tree. And then as she's walking over to the fireplace mantle, right, the camera is tracking. It's on a Dana dolly and it's tracking right to left. And in the foreground, we see the black rotary phone, the back of the black rotary phone. Well, did we just do that because it's a cool shot? No. Is it a cool shot? Yeah, sure. Sure, it's a cool shot. But that's not why we do it. That's not our intention, right? That's not why we wrote it that way, right? We are conveying a very specific thing. Even if you're realizing it or not consciously, it's having an effect on you. And of course, I'm talking about this one right here. So the camera's on a Dana dolly. Now it's tracking right to left, as we follow Sam. And there we are. There's the phone, the black rotary phone, right? The black rotary phone, and there's Sam. Now, what I want to ask the chat room. Not too many people watching today. Not surprised. Most people don't care about this stuff. But I want to ask the chat. What do you see here? When I play this, it's a cool shot, sure. But what is the cinematic language that's happening? What do you see here? What are we trying to convey? There's the phone. What is it doing? The phone doesn't ring. It doesn't ring. Sam doesn't answer the phone. What are we doing? Let's see if some of you get it. Take a guess. What is this phone do? What's the point of this? What's the symbolism here? What's the symbolism? We'll see. Impending doom. Pretty good, Robert. Pretty good. Yep. For sure. That's pretty good. Yeah. Impending doom. Yeah. That's foreshadowing, right? Robert's got that. The danger that's awaiting for them. Yep. Very good. Very good. It feels like her grandmother's ghost is watching over her. Oh, a little bit. Yeah, that'd be more from the photo, maybe not necessarily the phone, but that's cool. Foreshadowing. Right. Exactly. Right. Now, think of how dull this shot would have been if we just suddenly cut from Sam at the tree, because we could have cut from Sam at the tree, right? We could have cut. She's at the tree, right? So hang on. We see this shot. Oh, it's got to go through its thing. So we see this shot here. Oh, wait. So where are we here? Why am I not? There we go. Wait, let's go back here. So we see this shot. Oops. There we go. So we could have cut from here and then just cut to maybe, I don't know, another shot that didn't show the phone and just have Sam walk over to the mantle. Or we could have just tracked her backwards and walked her over to the mantle, right? There's many ways you can shoot a scene, but it's what are you trying to convey to the audience? What do you want the audience to feel? We got reflecting. We got evil is out there. Nerd report. Very good. Lewis, my man. Fuck Lewis. I love you. I got to get you on the show, Lewis. You're amazing. Lewis, it's great to see you. Right. Evil is out there. Foreshadowing, pending doom, right? When we were writing that scene, what we were as directors and as writers, what we were thinking as we were writing that was we knew the audience was going to go, oh, there's a rotary phone. Oh my God, right? We knew that some might think, is it going to ring? Is it not going to ring? Right? No, it's through in a certain level, in a certain way, it was Billy's there. He's watching her. You know what I'm saying? Right? The phone is being used as in a symbolic way of everything you're saying, foreshadowing, impending doom. Billy's watching her, right? Because she doesn't notice the phone. Does she look to the phone? Does she notice the phone? She doesn't. Now, why would she? There'd be no reason for her to do that, right? But she doesn't look over at it. It's not like she looks around the room and then looks at the phone. No, her eyes are locked on the fireplace mantle, and that phone is just there watching her. It's just watching her. Foreshadowing the eventual impending doom. That's cinematic language. That's cinematic language. And that is incredibly important. And again, if it's done well and it's done right, the average moviegoer shouldn't pick up on it, right? Because you're not necessarily going to consciously think, oh, that's that. It's just going to make you feel a certain way. Scorsese talks about this. Spielberg, talks about this. I'm not comparing myself to Scorsese or Spielberg. I'm just saying that these are things I've learned. I learned this in film school. I learned this by, listening and watching the greats of all time. Hitchcock began in silent films. So the use of cinematic language in silent movies was even more apparent and more important than ever before. And Hitchcock was brilliant at cinematic language. So anyway, that's what's happening there, right? It's that we are using, the phone and where we place the phone. We are telling the story through the lens, right? The lens we chose to shoot this, where we place the phone, how long we linger on it, and we don't draw attention to it. Because that's another thing we could have done as well, right? We could have, wait a second here. We could have tracked right to left and stopped on the phone. We could have stopped on the phone and been dun, 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 but we didn't want to do that. Those two things convey two very different feelings. Tracking right to left and then stopping on the phone, and tracking right to left and allowing the phone to leave frame as if it doesn't matter. As if, oh, it's just there, right? It's just there. We show the audience the phone, but the audience is going to go, oh, there's the phone. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But if we track right to left and we settle on the phone, then we're being more on the nose. Then we're telling the audience to maybe expect something, right? If you track, hold, the audience then thinks it's more important than it really is. But if you track from right to left, having it leave frame, you're just showing, oh, you know what I mean? It's the equivalent of like in a ghost movie or something, right? Where you're tracking along. It's like, perfect example, the first Insidious film, right? When Rose Byrne is walking around her house and she walks into a room and there's that little boy facing the wall. Does James Wan hold on the boy to go, look, a boy! Look, there's the boy! Nope, he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. She just walks through and you go, fuck, was that it? Was that a kid? Was that a fucking kid, right? Again, not the exact same, but the principles are the same, right? The principles are the same. And that's cinematic language. That's cinematic language. So another example would be clip number 3 here, which is the opening shot of the dining room scene when we are again on the Dana Dolly and we are tracking from left to right this time, where the girls are talking about Mark and Chris and how Justine has chosen Mark. She wants to be with Mark, right? And we are tracking from left to right, and I'll show you the clip here. Here it is. We're tracking from left to right. Now, what do you think is happening here? Right? Let's go to the audience and see, what do you think we are as filmmakers? Now, you can watch this and just go, oh, this is a cool shot. It's a cool establishing shot. Really nice, cool establishing shot, which it is. It's a nice, cool establishing shot. But that's not all it is, right? And we're lingering on it. We're staying on it. We're not cutting in. We're lingering. And then, of course, we cut in after that. I go to the audience. What do you think we are conveying there through the use of cinematic language, right? Now, again, it's not necessarily for the audience to pick it up. Filmmakers might pick it up. Film savvy people might go, oh, I get what they're doing there. That's cool. But the average person may not, but we're conveying a feeling. What's the feeling that you get? And if you didn't get anything, that's okay. It's not a big deal. I'm just trying to bring these things from your subconscious mind to your conscious mind. To let you know that, no, I've never made a Hollywood film in my life, but as a filmmaker and as somebody that just made a $60,000 film, these things are important. When you want to make a movie, a real movie, quote unquote, you got to pay attention to that stuff because it affects your audience in ways that it affects your audience subconsciously, and you get them to feel certain things through the use of how you tell your story. And this was real. It's really important in most movies, and it's very important in good horror movies, especially that have a psychological angle to it, which of course It's Me, Billy does. Someone's watching. Duke Fleed says, someone's watching. Don't fart. That's right. Someone's watching. There is life in the house. Ooh, Bobby's brother. I love that. There's life in the house. Duke Fleed said, someone's watching. Very good. Very good. Now, what is in that room? What is in the room? Like, where? Okay, so we just were in the living room with Victoria. I'm giving this away now. But what is there? What is likely in almost that exact spot? What's in that exact spot in the living room? Right? So we open up, we're tracking left to right. That's the living room behind them, right? You notice that when you watch, you can see the tree behind Victoria. We were just in the living room with Victoria, tracking right to left when she was at the fireplace mantle. What is there? What is there? There's many different interpretations, but I'll tell you what our intention was. Think about how, where the camera's situated, right? Think about where the camera is situated. This is cinematic language, right? Think about how high off the ground the camera is situated. I'm giving it away now. But think about that, right? That's when I tell you, you don't just stick a camera on a tripod and point and shoot, right? Where you place your camera, how high it is, how low it is, what lenses you use, all help to tell the story and convey the message that you want to convey. See if anybody gets it. I'll give you a couple more seconds here. Here, we'll watch this again. We'll watch the clip again. Oh. There we go. Watching the clip again. Here we are. Now, where is the camera? Right? Where's the camera? It's in the living room, right? That's where Sam was earlier, right? We see and then when we cut into them at the table, we see the Christmas tree behind them and all that kind of stuff. Anthony Bizzuto's got it, the phone, right? So when we cut back to this here, think of how low we are. Think of the camera. We're on the Dana dolly, right? Look at the camera position. Look at the angle. We're tracking right to left. There's the phone. There's the phone. Now we go to this. When we're tracking left to right, watch where the camera settles. Watch where the camera settles. And boom. There, we settle there. This is voyeurism. This is voyeurism. And because of the angle of the camera, it is in the exact same height and position of where the black rotary phone would be. Now, are you thinking of this consciously? No. If you're a filmmaker and a cinephile, maybe you pick it up. But it's all about the feeling we're trying to convey. But it's kind of cool to know that it's almost like the phone is watching them. And what does the phone represent? The phone represents Billy, right? We know this. The black rotary phone represents Billy. So, you know, it's fascinating to be able to use those tools as a filmmaker to tell your story through the lens. And again, it's all symbolism, foreshadowing, suggestion, all that kind of stuff. So you can tell, you know, you use cinematic language through how you light a scene. What are the three distinct colors that you may have? Like, for example, you may have, if a character in a movie is hiding something, right? You may want them to, and they know they're hiding, and maybe say a character's hiding something, right? They're embezzling all sorts of money or something. I don't know. And the wife confronts them, right? The wife confronts the husband. I know that you are into something shady. What the fuck's going on, John? What is going on, John? Right? Well, maybe that confrontation happens at night in a dimly lit room, and John is sort of lit kind of in shadow a bit, right? What does that shadow represent? Right? You know what I'm saying? He's not confronted on the playground on a sunny day with blue sky and no clouds, and he's squinting because of the sun, right? And the wife is confronting him there about his shady past. What does that make you feel? Nothing, other than maybe the performance, right? But if the wife confronts the husband at night when the husband's just about to go to bed and there's only one lamp on in the corner and it's tungsten balanced and it's casting a nice shadow on his face, right? What does that represent? That's cinematic language. And these are the two, and again, the audience isn't necessarily thinking of it consciously, right? It's all what you are conveying to your audience through the art of telling stories through film. And filmmakers need to understand this. That doesn't mean that you intentionally go out and start, writing films that is just saturated with symbolism. No, I mean, you know when there are opportunities to use symbolism and foreshadowing, and when you don't need to, right? It's not like you are consciously going, oh my God, I don't think, but when there's those opportunities. How can I tell this? Can I convey this feeling and message smarter? Can I really have an impact on the audience here if I write it like this as opposed to like this, and I still get the same message across, right? Those things are really, really important. So again, you're right. Our intention was, when you look at this clip, here, again, look at where the camera is situated, the height of the camera, tracking right to left. There's the phone, there's the table, right? There's the tree. Right? Okay. Now, what do you see behind Sam? There's the tree, right? There's the tree. See that lamp just over Sam's right shoulder, our left? See that lamp just over Sam's shoulder, right, left? You just see the top of the lampshade. Well, that's the lamp that's on the table where the phone is, right? Because the fire mantle is off to the left of the tree. So now when we go to a shot like this, right? Sam is sitting down. Think of the height of the camera. And situated exactly where that phone would be. Look at the position of Sam right there, right? Look at the position of Sam. Now, look at the position of Sam. See what I'm saying? That's cinematic language. And those things are very important. When you are approaching a movie, this is how in-depth and intense Bruce and I went. You know, we took this very seriously. We were making a movie. Now, whether you liked It's Me, Billy or not becomes irrelevant at the end of the day. Because, I mean, we always hope you like it. We hope that maybe these kinds of things help you appreciate the film more. But we took it very seriously. And we weren't half-assing anything. We weren't arbitrarily doing anything. Everything had clear intention. We worked on this film for 2.5 years. And you know, there were 14 drafts of the script. Everything had clear intention. There was a distinct reason for every shot, every lens, every frame, everything. And I want people to understand the importance of cinematic language and how to convey that in the scripts that you write, the films that you write. And again, not every film, you know, it depends on the genre, right? Your psychological thrillers or your psychological horror films will probably have a lot of that. But even sci-fi fantasy may have a lot of that too, right? Because there's an opportunity to, you know, through symbolism and foreshadowing, talk about the human experience and the, you know, the overall meaning of humanity and all that kind of stuff. That's done. That's done in Star Trek all the time. This is why it's so important to, and I don't profess to be an expert on religion or mythology. I am not even close, but I know more about religion now and mythology now than I did, say, when I was in film school 20-something years ago. And I know that it is vitally important to be able to, you know, when you have a understanding, like, that's why, like, take Star Wars, man. I mean, oh my God, like, hugely symbolic. The cinematic language in Star Wars is huge, but Lucas had a real strong appetite and understanding for mythology, religion, all that kind of stuff. And when you understand sort of symbolism, especially, you can tell stories in ways, you know, that can affect your audience, you know, on a subconscious level. So again, there's many different types of cinematic language, again, through the performance as well. Like, there's a scene, the porch scene of It's Me, Billy, right? When Sam looks over at Emma and then she stops and then she turns around and she faces her, right? She's facing her. Now, Sam could, like this porch scene here, where are we here? Let me go back. This is really important. Oh, I got to go to the other screen. My apologies. Other screen. Oh, don't worry about that. Let me get the, I think it's this one. Let me close that off. Oh, let me close that off. Nope. And let me close there, this scene, right? So we all remember this scene, and this is the end shot of the scene. Okay. So this is at the very end of the scene when they embrace, because obviously Emma is wanting to, you know, give Sam some love. And, but before that, they are facing out, right? They're facing out. And then when Sam starts to talk about her mother and how she's feeling emotionally and all that kind of stuff, to give a bit of exposition, she turns, if you remember this now, she turns, leans against the wall or the pillar to the right here on the screen and faces Emma. And Emma then turns her body towards Sam. Now, we know, even through body language analysis, that when you turn to somebody, that is also, you are exposing yourself. This is true. When your cat or dog flops on their belly to give you, to, you know, and shows you their belly, this is true, that they are, it's a sign of trust. They trust you. And because they are exposing their most vulnerable parts to you. Now, again, don't think, I know what you're thinking. Oh, so that's what she's doing? But in a way that is, right? When humans turn to other humans and start opening up to them about, serious things or personal things, that is a sign of trust. That shows that I trust this individual. I'm opening myself up to this person. We could have had them have that conversation with both of their chests facing out into the field, right? And they don't turn to each other at all. They just continue to stand there talking. You could have done that. But again, through the use of performance, through the use of cinematic language as it relates to performance, we directed Sam and Emma when things got serious to turn to each other. And the catalyst was not Emma, the catalyst was Sam. Sam turns, leans against the pillar, that causes Emma to slightly turn, and then Sam begins to open up, right? Begins to open up because this is her best friend. This is somebody she should trust. So there would be no reason for her to not turn when things get a little more serious, right? That's cinematic language. And these are things that you must pay attention to. It tells a story through the lens, through camera, through character development, through character performance, through lighting, all important. You must think about this kind of stuff. I'm not saying I am a huge, gigantic expert. I'm just saying that as somebody that's been in the entertainment industry for over 20 years, as somebody that went to film school, as somebody that has worked on set, as somebody that has studied film even long after being out of school, I have always been a student of film. This is so, I've learned just how important this really is. You may not think it's important, but it really is. There is a language to cinema. And when you understand what cinematic language is, it will only help you as a filmmaker to craft those shots, to think about the performances. What is the message we are conveying here? How do we want the audience to feel? What do we want them to, again, it's all tools you have as a filmmaker. So yes, I cannot hammer this home enough. It is vitally important. And anyway, let's go over to the chat room and see what you guys are saying. And and if you have any questions about this or whatever, we'll talk about it. King Slayer says, thought this was a Halloween channel. Yawn. Fuck you, King Slayer. That's what I have to say to that. No, I'm just busting your balls, buddy. Listen, King, I'm not I don't know why you think I'm a Halloween channel. It's like, dude, if you want Halloween all the time, then go somewhere else. It's like, I'll be honest with you. No, I'm going to say that fuck you was like half serious, bro. I do this shit for free. If you don't want to learn about film, then fuck off and get out of here. I couldn't fucking care less. Okay. I'll talk about Halloween when I want to talk about Halloween. Yeah, and I'm a little fucking I'm a little hot. I'm a little hot because I just spent an hour teaching you the importance of film. And if you don't care about it, then get out. It's rude what you just did. I thought this was a Halloween channel. Yawn. Now, if you want to, make it a joke, right? You're like, no, I'm just kidding, Dave, then let me know that. But if you're serious, then get out. I'm doing this for free. You're not paying for this shit. You're not paying for this, and get out. I'll talk about whatever I want to talk about. I'm not talking about Halloween all the time because I don't give a fuck to talk about Halloween all the time. If you want Halloween all the time, then go somewhere else. I busted my ass today prepping this show to talk to you about why movies affect you in the ways that they do. And if you don't like it, then King Slayer, get the fuck out. I don't care. Now, if you're kidding, then make sure you always put like a wink or like, no, dude, I'm just busting your balls. But I'm tired of this kind of disrespect that comes into my channel and they don't care about it. You don't like it? I don't care. You're not paying for this. I provide you a product. If you don't like it, you can leave. There's only 43 people watching. You're not the only one that doesn't give a shit. I don't do this for views. I don't do this for clicks. I don't do this for subs. If I did, I talk about Halloween all the time. I would do top 10 videos on the best Michael Myers shoelaces. I would do top 10, videos on the best Michael Myers underwear. But I don't give a fuck. I don't care. So yeah, I'm a little hot on it because it's like, dude, if I want to talk, I'll talk about whatever I want to talk about. And these things don't, it's not that this gets under my skin. It's that I think it's disrespectful when you come in here. Like, if you hadn't put the yawn face, right? And you had just said, thought this was a Halloween channel, then I probably wouldn't have addressed you as hot as I did. But when you put the yawn face, it's like, dude, like, this is my fucking channel. You don't like it, then get out. Do you know what I mean? I'm not a movie reviewer. I'm not just a horror channel. I'm a movie commentator. I talk about whatever I want to talk about. You don't have to tune in. You don't have to. Dude, and I'm not like, you know what? I apologize if I came off as overly hot. But when I saw your message, I thought you were going to say something fun. And you basically said, yeah, dude, I don't fucking care about what you're talking about. Ugh. That's disrespectful. You watch this for free. You don't have to watch it. You don't have to say anything. You can just be like, dude, hey, Dave's talking about cinematic language. Say, that's not for me. Well, then don't watch. Then leave. I don't care. Watch when I'm talking Halloween. You don't have to come in and disrespect the channel and me and the hard work that I put into the show like that, right? That's all I'm saying, okay? It's that kind of shit that pisses me off. I know not everybody is interested in cinematic language. I know that. I know not everybody cares about this kind of shit, but I do. And I provide a product, and if you want it, great. If not, then leave. I don't care. Anyway. Nerd Report says, this was an amazing presentation, Dave. I'm jealous as to how good you are at this. Oh, thank you, Lewis. I think I'm good at the stuff that I'm passionate about. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be talking about superhero films in this way because I don't know anything about that. And by the way, Kingslayer, again, like, you're welcome here, dude. You are. But try not to be a dick. Like, don't be a dick like that. I just finished the presentation. This is the first thing I read. It's like, dude, you don't like it? Then leave. It's that simple. Yeah, don't mind the trolls. Yeah, I don't think Kingslayer is a troll. I don't see that as a troll. Trolls don't like. I don't care about trolls. Trolls never get under my skin because trolls are just not very good at trolling. This just was disrespectful. You know what I mean? It was just disrespectful. It's like, dude, like, come on, man, smarten up. Smarten up. Evil Alex says, I'm just a fan of film. I don't study them, but I understand all the parts. Films are art. What was the first films that made you think more about films than just that you like or just like that or hate that? Well, I think it was from a very early, great question, Evil Alex. I think it was from a very early age, actually. I think it was one of those things where I was always into movies and, as a lot of us were from a very young age, right? I grew up as a young boy in the 80s, so I was into the Goonies and Stand By Me and Indiana Jones and Halloween and horror and all that kind of stuff. And I just loved, and I always, from a very young age, always loved how movies were made. I wanted to know how they did that, how did they do that? That's so fucking cool. So I was always into the magic behind the movies. Now, some people don't like to know how the magic is done, but I always appreciate how the magic is done. And I've always, like, I love watching, I could watch like a 5-hour behind the scenes making of on a movie that I really like, right? Some people can't do that either because it's like, they don't want to do that, or they it's just too long. Like, they just don't have an interest, right? So yeah, I've just always been kind of there. Yeah, it's always been important to me. Diehard Drummer 84 says, no matter what you talk about, I always listen because you're really insightful and funny with your theatrics. Thank you, Diehard. Always love and appreciate the hard work you put into these shows. Yeah, and it's not like I mean, listen, there are shows out there that put way more work into into the shows they do than I do. But I'm I'm trying to teach something. And that doesn't mean that you have to be interested in it. You can just check out. Like, you can just be like, oh, Dave's talking about something I'm not interested in, so I leave. That's what I do. If I tune into a channel that I usually watch and they're talking about, I don't know, Marvel, and I don't give a fuck about Marvel, I don't just say, hey, dude, I just go, oh, they're talking about Marvel. Okay, cool. Well, that's for the Marvel people. So I'll just tune in some other time, right? But it's disrespectful. And it's just, like I said, I don't think I would have responded so hot if I hadn't just finished an hour, quote unquote, lecture on the importance of cinematic language in movies. And, you may not care about it, but you're affected by it. So Kingslayer doesn't have to care about it, but you cannot avoid being affected by it. So, shut up and maybe you'll learn something. And if you sit for 5 minutes and you don't care, then leave. And if you were joking, then always make sure that you put, a joke in there, right? Like, nah, dude, I'm just busting your balls, Dave. I'm not really interested, but, cool. You know what I mean? Or whatever, right? Because sometimes it's hard to differentiate who's joking and who's not. Because sometimes people bust my balls. Frank and Darren bust my balls all the time, right? And I can have my balls busted. I can take a joke. If I can dish it, I can take it. But you got to make sure that you relay that, because if you just put that and you leave that, then I see that as just kind of a shot to the hard work that I put into today's show, and just try not to do that, man. Like, come on, like, we're all family here, man. We're all having fun. You don't have to like the show, but you don't have to tell me you don't like it, in such a disrespectful, arrogant way, Anyways, Chester Franklin Jr. says, Dave, I agree with you. Why somebody want Halloween so much, go watch a different channel. Yeah, well, listen, I'm a Halloween fan. I love Halloween, but I don't want to talk about it all the time. And especially when there's nothing to talk about. You know what I mean? I don't want to talk about it all the time. I want to talk about other things. I have other interests. I'm a filmmaker. I'm somebody that, has worked in entertainment for 20 something years. I have different perspectives that maybe some of the other channels don't. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying I have maybe some insight that maybe they don't. So I want to share that stuff. I want to share, hey, here's an anecdotal thing. Here's some insight. Here's something that I learned. Here's this, whatever. I don't want to share that. I don't want to always talk about Halloween. If other channels want to talk about it 24/7, that's cool. That's just not for me. It's just not for me. That's all. Ryan Oslo says, Dave, are movies to you, in your opinion, art to you, or just subjective to you as a whole? Well, here's the thing. Movies are subjective. Whether you like a movie or not is definitely subjective, 100%. But there is I've never been a fan of the term, all film is subjective. It's like, well, yes, what we like is subjective, yes. But there is a standard. I mean, there are reasons why, generally speaking, most people think The Shawshank Redemption is one of the greatest films of all time. There are reasons why, Godfather, Inception, Halloween when it comes to horror or something like that, or Psycho, or whatever. It doesn't mean everybody has to like those films. But generally speaking, the filmmaking prowess and the filmmaking technique and how you tell the story through life, there are right and wrong ways to tell a story. There are reasons why the best movies of all time are generally considered the best movies of all time. A big part of that is cinematic language, by the way. So, yes, somebody can hate The Shawshank Redemption, sure, and think it's garbage. But generally speaking, yes, film is subjective, but there are quantifiable things we can point to that if you pay attention to this when you're writing, if you tell a story this way, if you use cinematic language in this way, if you, create a film and tell a story in these ways, generally speaking, your movies will be well received. Do you know what I mean? So we can quantify filmmaking and film to a point. So I've never really liked the term all film is subjective, no matter what, it's black and white, because at the end of the day, it feels like a cop-out. It feels like an excuse to just say, well, I like what I like and nobody can tell me different. Well, yes, that's true, but there are still quantifiable reasons to the filmmaking technique to, that is not opinion, if you know what I mean. So it's a bit of a catch-22. Like, I do agree that you like what you like and you don't like what you don't like. But there are reasons why the greatest movies of all time are generally considered by everybody to be the greatest movies of all time. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are reasons. It's not just taste. You know, there are specific techniques and things that are being employed in the filmmaking that makes you feel that way. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's important to remember too. Nerd Report Lewis comes in with $5. Thanks, man. Says Black Christmas influenced Halloween. So that dude's comments are beyond ignorant. I don't know if he went on and said anything else. Like I said, Kingslayer, dude, you know, we can let bygones be bygones. If you want to, if you don't want to apologize, you don't have to. But if you weren't kidding, then I think you should. Of course, you could come back now in the chat and say, no, I was just kidding. And you really weren't. But I'm not going to ban you. I'm not calling you a troll. I don't think you're a troll. I just got hot because I just finished. Like, I just said, now let's go over to the chat. Maybe if I hadn't read yours first and I had read it like, you know, now, like 5 minutes after, I probably wouldn't have reacted that way, but I felt disrespected because I just finished. I felt good about what I was presenting. And I think there's validity and you know, stuff. But that doesn't mean you have to like it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to care about it. But then just don't watch, dude. Like, just check out. Check out. Just go, oh, Dave's talking cinematic language. Whatever. Boring. And go watch something else. Go watch top 10 Michael Myers boots. I mean, you know, whatever you want to do, man. And that's not, I'm not throwing shade at anybody. I have no idea if anybody's ever done top 10 Michael Myers boots. Okay. I'm just saying that as a satirical way of saying that I know there are people out there that cover nonsense, ridiculous things just to keep the Halloween shit going. I don't know if anybody's done boots. Okay. But yes, Black Christmas, Lewis is right. Black Christmas influenced, Halloween and that's apparent. And John Carpenter has said as much. So, now you can like Halloween better than Black Christmas. Halloween's a bit of a slow burn. Black Christmas is even a slower burn. You don't have to like it, but certainly its influence and its influence on the genre, on the subgenre of slashers is incredible. It cannot be dismissed. It's there. So it's very important. Mikey Films sends in $2. Thank you very much, Mikey Films. Really appreciate that. Jonathan Nichols says, I honestly wasn't very interested in this topic at first, but Dave made it interesting and glad I watched it. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. No, and I'm not surprised that we have as low view count as we do, because this is probably one of the more, I understand it though. I think other film people like myself probably feel this way. When you have a channel like mine that I love talking Halloween, who doesn't want it? And listen, Halloween's about to ramp up here in the next, well, I can't say, in the next short while. I know some stuff. So don't worry, you're going to get your Halloween fix, Kingslayer. You will get your Halloween fix. But I'm not a Halloween. I rose to prominence in the space talking Halloween because it was a big deal. But I don't want to be pigeonholed and sort of, you know, thrown into a corner where that's all I have to talk about, because I have other interests. No, I'm not a Marvel guy or a DC guy, but I love talking film and I love giving my opinions on shit, right? And so I want to talk about stuff that interests me. And clearly, if I was about views, clicks, likes, and subs, then I wouldn't be talking about the importance of cinematic language. Not in my space. I would be talking about it. I'd be talking about Halloween. You know what I mean? If I had done a show today, Halloween, we'd have 150 people right now. But the point I'm making is that I don't fault people for not being interested. Like Kingslayer, man. Like, you know what? Like, truly, I don't fault you for not caring. I don't care, dude. I get it, right? Maybe you're somebody that just doesn't care. There's lots of people out there that have no interest in knowing how the magic is done. They don't care about this topic. It's boring to them. They just want to watch movies, just want to relax, just want to watch movies. I don't care. Well, then don't tune in. But I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about that I find interesting, and to put it out there for those who may find it interesting. You know, and like I said, cinematic language is used in almost every single movie you watch. So you are affected by it. So why not learn about it? You know, but I understand. Frank Riker says, Dave could use cinematic language in every genre film, let's say like documentaries, for sure, absolutely documentary use cinematic language, because documentaries, especially now, I mean, some documentaries are a little more cinematic than others. You know, it's like reality TV, right? Reality TV is, listen, as somebody who's worked in, I don't want to say I've worked in television, but in voiceover and have voiced many spots for reality television in my life, and have gotten to speak to producers and casting directors and seen promos cut together. And I can certainly tell you that the cinematic language that is going on, even in cutting trailers and cutting promos, and how a trailer is cut and how a promo is cut, and what we want the audience to feel, and what we want the audience to think, it's also used there. There's very little reality in reality TV. So, yeah, I mean, it's used all over the place. It's used all over the place. All over the place. All right, let's see here. Anthony Bazzuto sends in $4.99, says, Dave, if all goes your way and you can film a sequel to It's Me, Billy, do you already have somewhat of a rough draft written up? No, there is not a rough draft written up, but I do have there is sort of, we have the basic outline of where we would go, which is what we've had for, I mean, long before we even shot It's Me, Billy. So it just would have to, we haven't entered into development yet. We're working on the perks right now and trying to get the perks out there and all that kind of jazz. But certainly we have a basic outline, and it just needs to be fleshed out and filled in and that kind of jazz. So, if and when we do enter development on It's Me, Billy 2, I don't know if that's what it's going to be called. I'm just calling it that for the sake of the show. Then we will let you know. You know, we will obviously make an announcement that we've entered into development and the script's being written and all that kind of jazz. But we want to let this breathe for a bit and see how well it does. I mean, with very little press, it's done fairly well. I mean, again, Black Christmas is not Halloween. It's not Friday the 13th. It's not A Nightmare on Elm Street. So, in 3 weeks, we've just crossed over 23,000 views, which I think is really good. For a Black Christmas fan film, I mean, let's face it, the vast majority of people don't give a fuck about Black Christmas. They don't care. They don't care, right? They don't care. So to have it have 23,000 views in 3 weeks is pretty good, but we want more. We want to see if there's an appetite. We want to get the film out there more and see if there's a larger appetite. How well is it going to do at Halloween time? How well is it going to do at Christmas when everybody's writing think pieces on the original Black Christmas and everybody's talking about Black Christmas and doing their Black Christmas reviews and their Black Christmas revisits. And no doubt that when it comes to holiday season, It's Me, Billy is going to pop up on people's views and feeds. And so, there could be some feedback and views there as well. I did do a poll across social media if people would be interested in seeing the follow-up. It was above 90%, and I think it's probably higher because there's no doubt a couple of trolls would no doubt put down. Actually, I did see them do that, actually. So, you take that in consideration, but we're well above 90% that I think people would love to see it finished. We would love to finish it because there is more we want to tell. There's probably another 45, 50-minute movie in there, right? And then if you put them together, you almost have like a feature. So, we're hoping, but we want to let the film breathe a bit. It's only been 3 weeks and see how well it does over the course of these next important moments. And we want to get the film out there. So if you're somebody who's watching this and you like the movie, share it. The more support we indie filmmakers can get, the better. And so we'll see what happens. Let me see here. Gary Rangel sends in $5 and says, Dave, did you borrow elements from H 2018 for It's Me, Billy, such as the plot twist idea, the strained relationship Sam had with her family? No. When Bruce and I were writing It's Me, Billy, there were no influences. The only influence we had was the original Black Christmas. We did not take from Halloween 18. We did not take from Black Xmas 06 with Agnes. We did not take nothing. When we were writing It's Me, Billy, as writers, what is the foundation? What's your endpoint? Well, listen, as I've said many times, Black Christmas, the original, has one of the greatest endings of all time. One of the greatest endings of all time in terms of horror. It doesn't need a sequel. But if it did have a sequel, well, what's our endpoint? How could we continue the story? Well, although there is very strong circumstantial evidence that Jess likely died at the end of the movie because Billy made a phone call at the end of every death. The phone is ringing. She's the only one in the house. That means Billy got her. Sure. But we also know that Bob Clark was planning to do a sequel to the original film with Jess, with Olivia Hussey as Jess. So even Bob Clark acknowledges that, well, she may have survived. So we took that as the catalyst to drive our story. It's 45, 50 years later, and she has a granddaughter. We wanted to have somebody who maybe was in their 20s, because the daughter of Jess, or son, we chose to have it as a daughter, that was the baby in the original, the baby that she wanted to have an abortion, would have been maybe even in her 50s right now. So we wanted to go a bit younger, so we made it the granddaughter. And then everything spiraled from there. Like, what would be the relationship? What would be the residual effects psychologically, emotionally, physically, that somebody would have, more of the psychological and emotional side somebody would have living in the shadow of Jess Bradford, being this person and all that. And that's how we constructed the story. We weren't thinking about Halloween 18 at all, not at all. But the similarities are there because David Gordon Green would have done the same thing, right? They would have done the same thing. They would have thought, okay, well, what's our endpoint? You know what I mean? Well, it's this. Okay, well, what is, imagine surviving that night, right? Like Laurie Strode did. What kind of things would happen to that, right? Well, for Laurie Strode in H18, she became a recluse. She suffered from PTSD. She didn't really go on to do much, right? We know this, at least so far. With Jess, it was a bit different. She went on to become a novelist. She wrote a book called The Belmont Murders, which became very therapeutic for her. It became a #1 bestseller on the New York Times, made her very rich, very wealthy. She was also a novelist that wrote other books as well. We know this. And her own daughter, which was the baby she had in the original that she was pregnant with, grew up living in the shadow of this fame, fortune, obsession that Jess had, right? And all that is relayed to you in It's Me, Billy. It's not relayed to you on a silver platter, like turning to the camera and go, oh, in case you didn't know, but it's done through cinematic language, through exposition, right? So if you pay attention, it's all there. And so that's what you have to do. It doesn't mean that filmmakers should not or are never not influenced by other filmmakers or styles or stories or whatever the case is. That does happen. But you should never be, oh, I liked H18, so I'm going to use that as my reason too. Like, no, what is your story? Does it make sense? You have to go back to the inception of the endpoint of where you're beginning, right? Why are we doing this? What is likely here? You know what I mean? So no, H18 had no influence on the film at all. Harry Hagen, my man, says, I think Us had too much symbolism and foreshadowing. I'd have to watch Us again, Harry. I'd have to watch Us again. I've only seen it once, but certainly what Harry is saying is not true. You can oversaturate your film with symbolism. You can get a little too self-indulgent and get too in your head and lose sight of the nuance and the importance of being more nuanced and subtle. The best symbolism in the world is stuff that is subtle and nuanced, that is there in the background, that is there in a fleeting moment, that is there just for the audience to discover, That is some of the best symbolism that you can have. So I remember Us being very, very saturated with it, but I don't recall having issues with that. But I'd have to watch it again. You could be right. Jay Corinthos? Am I saying that right? There I am, phonetically sounding out again. One of my favorite artistic choices in horror is filming someone from afar so that you can't make out their features, like those shots of Myers standing in the distance in H78, simple but effective. Absolutely, right? Absolutely. The cinematic language in Halloween, I wonder if Kingslayer is still in the chat. We're talking Halloween. The symbolism and cinematic language used in Halloween is very apparent. I've talked about that in the past, right? Where, if you think about it, we never see Michael in close proximity until nighttime. right? So the use of that is like Michael is always seen from afar, right? He's on the other side of the road looking at Laurie through the school window, right? He's in the distance, right? He's that storm on the horizon that's coming. He's getting closer, but he's in the distance. And then he's in the distance again at the bush. And then he's in the distance again in Mr. Riddle's backyard, right? He's never, the first time we see him in real close proximity in any great detail is, I believe it's even when he kills Annie, it's through the windshield of the car, but the condensation and the fog has fogged up the windshield, which allows the excuse. He's closer than he's ever been because it's nighttime now. The storm has arrived, but you kind of see him sort of obscured. He's a bit blurry because of the condensation on the window. And then when he kills Bob, you see him, but it's kind of light. You know what I mean? The first time we see him in real close proximity in any great detail is after he kills Linda, right? When he lifts his head into frame and he's got the phone to his ear and he turns, it's like, wow, the storm has arrived. Linda is dead. Bob is dead. Annie is dead. Now shit's getting real. You know what I mean? And that's cinematic language. Yeah. You're not thinking of this consciously, but it's making you feel a certain way and feel certain things, which is really important. It's really important. Evil Alex says, saw Lighthouse. Oh yeah, great film. First time film was amazing on many levels. Symbolism, acting, metaphor, to many things, including mythology. Great storytelling. Did you see it? I did. I loved it. I thought it was great. Very film noir, obviously. And I agree with you. Yeah, again, that's a perfect example of what you're talking about. Simon says, Midsommar had a lot of symbolism too. Yep. Some of the most brutal deaths as well. Hereditary has it. A lot of, it's, again, you don't want to throw symbolism in for the sake of throwing symbolism in. But, if you have an opportunity to foreshadow or to make your audience feel a certain way, it's all part of the language of cinema. It's all part of tools. It should never be done arbitrarily for the sake of it, but it's all part of the language. It's all part of the language, for sure. For sure. Lee Bowers says, good afternoon, Dave. Yesterday was my mom's 60th birthday. Tonight, I'm inviting my friends over for movie night and we're watching It's Me, Billy. Very cool. Well, happy birthday to your mom. Happy 60th. I'm sure she doesn't look a day over 25. And very cool. Well, I hope you guys like it. I don't know, Lee, have you seen it yet? I hope you guys like it. I hope everybody enjoys it. Remember, if people are like, what? That's it? It's episodic. There is plans to do more, just in case people are like crazy. Johnny Melancholy says, hey, Dave, thoughts on Godzilla vs. Kong? I haven't seen it yet. I liked it. It's a spectacle. It's like watching an arcade video game. But I didn't like it as much as King of the Monsters. But I thought it was fun. It was fun. If you liked King of the Monsters, you'll enjoy Godzilla vs. Kong. If you hated King of the Monsters, then you may like Godzilla vs. Kong. I mean, it was fun. I still like the other one better, though. Did I get the super chats? Got Nerd, got Lewis, Mikey Films, Gary Wrangle, Harry, Anthony. Yes, I believe I did get the super chats. Where are you guys? There you are. Cool. I've seen 20 times. You've seen it 20 times? Is that hyperbole? Holy shit. You might be able to recite line for line now. That's amazing. Let's hear. Robert P. Thidoff says, Dave, do you like a Silence? Do you like Silence of the Lambs? Or wait. Excuse me, let me try that again. Dave, do you think, a Silence of the Lambs fan film would work like a moment later from the ending of the movie? Like when Hannibal is in the Bahamas and tracking down Dr. Yeah, dude, yes. I'm sure. I think that'd be fun. I wonder if there is a Silence of the Lambs fan film. That'd be fun. I'm not going to do that. I'm just saying, yeah, maybe that might be kind of interesting. You'd have to shoot it like to take place in the Bahamas. You don't have to be in the Bahamas, but you'd probably want to go somewhere where there's palm trees, like Florida or Southern California, or or something like that. Or Carolina or somewhere where you could get some palm trees. I think there's palm trees in Carolina, right? South Carolina. Yeah, that'd be kind of fun. Edwin Sordo says, what are some of your favorite movie trailers? Ones that come to mind for me are Godzilla 2014, Force Awakens, and Jaws. Dude, the trailer for Godzilla 2014 was fucking spectacular. It was unreal. Way better than the movie. Jaws, yeah, Jaws is great. Jaws is a great trailer. Force Awakens, do you mean the Chewie We're Home or the teaser trailer that was released in November of 2014? That was so fucking unreal. It was unbelievable. And I'm a Force Awakens fan. I like the Force Awakens. I don't care what anybody says. Harry Hagen says, do you think you could have pushed the narrative forward in It's Me, Billy, but kept Billy as he was in 74? Because that was one of my few issues with it. I felt Billy was shown too much, with all due respect. No, that wasn't, no disrespect taken. That was an issue that some people had. Sure. I mean, of course, I think you could have, but we wanted Billy to have, we just didn't want to do the same thing over again. And again, like I said, it doesn't mean people have to agree with the creative choices, but when you are doing a sequel, by process of default, you are advancing the narrative forward. I personally think, this is my own opinion, I personally think we did a really good job at advancing Billy's character development through the lens, but still keeping him Billy. And, it's 50 years later. We didn't want to just have it POV and just, you never see him ever. I think if this was a Black Christmas fan film and we were doing our own version of the original, I think that's what we would have done, because that's what they did. But I think it's important to, at the very least, advance it forward a bit. And, people who say, I didn't like seeing Billy, I think it's important that you never saw him. I think most people think I just didn't like seeing him from that perspective, because you never saw his face. His hair was always covering it. Even in the attic, it's lit by one bulb. He's in shadow, right? You see kind of what he's wearing a bit, but you never see him. You still don't know anything about him. You don't know how he got there, what he's doing, what the fuck is going on. When he kills Justine, again, light and shadow, the great eye shot. I think we did justice, in my opinion, of honoring the character, hopefully allowing the audience to believe that's Billy. Yes, I believe this is Billy 50 years later, but also giving you a bit of a different perspective on this character and who he is. That's important. And that was important for us, rather than keeping him, because Billy's not supernatural. Billy doesn't have a supernatural element to him. Billy was never intended to be supernatural. He's not Michael Myers. So Billy's mystique and never seeing him and absolutely is definitely apparent in that first movie. It's important because it was designed that way, right? But if you are going to do a sequel, I would imagine, unless Bob Clark was changing the Prowler, right? If Bob Clark was, like, for example, we know that Bob Clark had a sequel, okay? Bob Clark had a sequel idea in mind. We know this, that, that he was going to set it a year later. Now, whether this was the sequel he was going to do with Olivia Hussey, I don't know. But we know, and this is from Bob Clark's mouth. He said that, I had no intention on doing one, but back in the 70s, if I was going to do one, he said, I would probably set it a year later. Billy escapes from a mental institution. He goes back to his hometown. It's Halloween time. We know this, right? Because there's a lot of parallels to the original Halloween. Well, I would imagine that even that sequel, you would have experienced Billy in different ways, while still honoring the integrity of what made Billy Billy. Do you know what I mean? So I would imagine that, and in the sequel that Bob Clark was planning on doing years later with Olivia Hussey, would it have been Billy or would it have been a different Prowler? Maybe if it had been a different Prowler, and our film, It's Me, Billy, wasn't Billy, it was a different Prowler altogether, then we could have utilized the same techniques in the same way. But when it's the same character, that's already been done. So we wanted to honor the original by still pushing his character a bit forward. But to your point, do I think it could have been done? Sure, yeah, you could have done that, sure. But we made the creative choice to give you some insight into, oh shit, wow, I haven't seen this from this perspective before. And I think it was unexpected for some people because of their emotional attachment, because of what they think works in the original. And they're right, that works in that film. And that's one of the reasons why Carpenter didn't want to do a sequel to the original Halloween, right? Is because by default, when you are doing a sequel, you're pushing the narrative forward. And that means everybody. You know, your antagonist has to move forward as well. It's not that they move forward, it's how they move forward, right? So, everybody is entitled to disagree with our creative choice. But we wanted to make sure that we were not just doing the same thing over again, that we were honoring the original, letting you get to see Billy. You're not really seeing him, you know what I mean? But, you know, see Billy, in quotes, from a bit of a different perspective, because this is the next step in the story now, you know? But like I said, don't think that if we get a chance to do part 3 or part 2, I'm saying part 3, like it's a, you know, that all of a sudden you're going to be seeing his face and all that kind of stuff. And you're going to see him in broadly, in like daylight and all that. That's not what's going to happen. It's not a progression in that sense. But yeah, I mean, it could have, I guessed it could have, but for me, it just would have been the same thing, you know, and then what, you know what I mean? And then it's kind of like, you know, Billy's a real person. He's a really disturbed individual. And I think as long as I personally think, and we had long talks about this, that this was the extent that I would have wanted to go with him. Show him in the chair, like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? And then show him entering the room in shadow. And you're like, is that fucking, holy shit. You know what I mean? And then dragging Sam down the hall. It's like, fuck. You know, like, Jesus. But you're not seeing him, you know, and you never will. But yeah, it could have worked, I guess. It could have. But we wanted to advance it in the ways that we did. And yeah, those are the reasons. Because Billy's not somebody that you can't, as I mentioned before, Harry, Billy's not somebody that can be advanced. Billy's not somebody that can have a lot of backstory in character development in that way. So how do you develop a character like Billy without telling you where he comes from? What, like, I mean, blatantly obvious. I mean, you can hint at certain things, but like really opening it up, like what they did in Halloween 2. Oh, Billy's actually the brother of Jess, and actually that, you know, you don't want to do that, right? So how do you develop a character of Billy that part of what makes him work is his enigma and being in the shadows? Well, you change it up a little bit on how you show him through the lens, but still honoring that enigma side of him. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's how I feel about it. What are we? Whoa, oh, geez, we're a little over today. Any other super chats? I don't think so. I think we're okay there. Yes. Okay, folks, that is going to do it for me here on episode 180 of McRae Live. Thank you to my amazing moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Shore, Darren Sands, Chris Baber, for doing what you guys do. You guys are amazing. Kingslayer, don't be a dick, man. You're always welcome here. My apologies again if I got a little hot, but I was a little like, you know, I just finished this thing and that's what you come at me with. That was a little fuck, you know what I'm saying? But you are welcome here. Just don't be a dick, dude. Just don't be a dick. If you don't want to watch, don't watch, go watch something else. I mean, you know, you're not paying for this and you're not required to be here. Okay. Yes. And thank you to all the super chat questions that came in today, the non-super chat questions that came in today. You guys are amazing. You know that. Have a great rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend and stay safe out there. Alrighty. In the meantime and in between time, cheers.